In my Attracting Capital class, we had a game where we started off with a marble, and the goal was to trade up. And the whole purpose was to figure out if the value is different for different people, which it is. And so people always consider the value of things differently based on how they view something or what they experienced during their life. So we were given a marble, and we were supposed to trade up, and I am such a entrepreneur and a go-getter that I was like, I'm always trading at garage sales. I'm like, you know what, I think this is $5, will you take it? And most of the time they're like, all right, you know, trying to get rid of it. So I was like, this is going to be awesome. So I started off with the marble, and right after I left class, I went and I traded for a pen. And so with that pen, I was like, okay, I'm going to just keep going with this. So that same day, I traded for a lighter. And then I was like, well, I need to target someone who smokes or something like that. And so I'm not a smoker. So I have this professor that carries around cigars all the time. And I was like, yes, he'll trade me. And so I was like, well, I'm not sure if my professor will be in on this, or since it was just a big lighter, I wasn't positive he would trade it. Well, he agreed, and so I got the cigar, and I was thrilled. I was like, okay. So after I got that cigar, I was talking to my dad, and I was like, I need to find someone who will trade me something for a cigar. And he was telling me about this golf tournament going on, and there was going to be Mavs players, like Cowboy players, all these like high up people playing at this game. And he was like, you can just come and see if they'll trade you something. And so I was like, oh my gosh, okay. And so I traded before this, and I got golf clubs, and they were brand new and like hadn't ever been opened. And so I traded the golf clubs with Paul Orman, and he gave me Mavs tickets, floor seats, and the tickets were floor seats from a man who has been going to the Mavs games since
Dallas Mavericks?
Dallas Mavericks, yes, since they began. And so these seats are never taken. He always goes to every single game. So to get these seats, it was like, oh my gosh, that's awesome. So from those, I was like, now I have something that a lot of people would consider pretty valuable. And so I started calling around and seeing who would want to have these tickets. And so I knew it wasn't going to be any of the players that I'd met before. And so one of my dad's really good friends, he loves going to the Mavs game. And so I asked my dad, I was like, can I contact him? Like, can you give me all of his information? And so my dad did, and he was like, I don't know if he'll let you trade, but you can call and ask. So I did, and I called, and I explained that it was for a charity, and we were going to give our final trade to, you know, a nonprofit of our choice. And so after that, he was like, well, let me think about it, and I'm on my way to the ranch now. And he is a hunter, and he has his own ranch. And I was like, perfect. I was like, will you trade me the Mavs tickets for like a couple days hunting on your ranch for people? And he was like, well, I'll think about it. And so I was like, oh gosh, I hope he says yes. And like an hour later, he contacted me back, and he was like, what game is it? What and floor seats? He said, wanted to know all the information. I gave him the information, and then he was like, all right, I'll do it. For 4 to 6 people, they can come to my Four Oaks hunting ranch and have like a guided hog tour or hunt, and stay for, I'm pretty sure it was 3 nights. I have the certificate, and he'll guide them around and everything like that. And so this is averaged at, for 4 to 6 people, it's $1,600 to $2,400. So I was like, wow, I'm doing, you know, pretty good. And so after that, I was like, who should I give this to? Because Bill, the guy who gave it to me, was like, well, I don't want just some like random person coming and like going wild on my hunting ground. And so I was like, well, how about I put it on Craigslist and require that they live in Texas, and the trade is a Jeep. So you can only get the hunting guided tour for a trade of a Jeep. And so right now it's on Craigslist, and I'm still waiting to hear if someone will trade it. But now I've thought about going on the radio and like broadcasting it everywhere. That's where I'm at right now. I've learned that value is viewed very differently to a whole bunch of people. Like, I didn't think my professor would trade a Bic lighter, but even though the value to him wasn't that much, he wanted to help. And so not only is it value, but it's also like your story and what you're trying to get to and things like that. And I was talking to my dad about how I'm supposed to reach people if I'm not sure like what they're willing to give. And it's kind of like the garage sale game. You never know what they're going to trade you or deal with you on, but unless you try, you'll never know. And if you shoot to what you think the value is at, then if they don't agree, then you stick with your value because that's what you think it's valued at. And if they don't agree, then you try someone else. And if they do, great. And so that's what I've figured out is people think values differently. And just like the Mavs people, they'll give away, the Mavs players will give away tickets because, they're the players. They can go to any game they want. They can, they're at the game. So it's not worth as much to them than it is to like my family or another family like that. So whatever you have abundance of, it appears to me that it's not as valuable because you have so much of it. So someone else who doesn't have that will value that at a much higher like value than what you do.